Hello, I'm Ellie for Edu4Java and this is Swing tutorial number 4. In this tutorial we're going to add listeners to the buttons of the login window we did in the last tutorial. We're going to make the buttons work. We copy the code as always. Here we are. Here we can see that we need the class login button listener, which is the listener object. We can copy it from the page also. There we are. Now we don't have the error. Let's see what's different in the code. Everything is just the same as the last tutorial, and these two lines are the ones that are different in the code. What I've done here is to the login button we have created here. What we do, I call the method add action listener, and I give him a listener object. What does this instruction do? The button informs the listener object of any click which is made on the button. What does this object have to be a listener? It has to implement the interface action listener. Here we have the object and it implements action listener. What does this implementation of the action listener mean? Let's take a look at this class. Login button listener implements action listener. When you implement an action listener has a method which we are obliged to implement, action perform. This method receives an event as a parameter. So when login button is clicked, it is going to call its listener. So when login button is clicked, it is going to call its listener, the object we had given him as the listener, which will call the method action performed. When this happens, we will see a dialog saying login button has been pressed. You can verify this if we run the program and press the button login. Here we can see the message. What happened? When I click login looked for all the listeners associated to him. In this case, only one. It executes the method action performed and it shows what it's programmed here. The dialog with the message login button has been pressed. We have a second example, a bit more complicated, also in the page. We copy this login view too. Here we are. We also need this class myButtonListener. So we copy this class also that we have in the page, myButtonListener. Here we are. I created this listener so that it's suitable for login button and for register button. And we do the same as before. We call the method add action listener for the login button, and we call it also for the register button, and we pass the listener we have just created for both of them. In this way, we give it to the login button so that when anybody clicks on login button, it calls the my button listener, and the same with register button. When we click on register button, it is also going to be executed. In my button listener, I do two things. First, I'm going to use this object, which comes as a parameter, which is the event. This object, action event, which is passed by the button when an event occurs, has all the information of the event. And one of the properties of this event is the source. It's the object which generated the event. In this case, it will be the buttons. If someone clicks on the login button, the source will be that login button, and if someone clicks on the register button, the source will be the register button. The register button will be the component, the source, which generates the event. Here, I can make a cast to J button because I know that this event is only going to be triggered by the buttons, by one or the other type of buttons, but by a button. So I can cast it and keep it in a JButton variable. And here I can use this object source, which generated the event, to set it as a further component of the Windows Show Message dialog. Remember that we always wrote null here. Now I can put this component directly. Let's come here and we run login view 2. We press login and we see that the window appears next to the button, and with the register button the same. I press register and it appears near the button register. This further component is useful to say where is the show message dialog going to appear. If we go to the example login view 1 and we run it and click on login, we see that the window appears here because we had passed null here. No associations existed. If there was an association, it would have appeared next to the button which generated the event. Okay, let's finish with the listener. We go back to my button listener. Source get text. The source is the component, a button, and if we ask him for the text, it gives us the text of the button. Let's run the program. We run login view 2, and if we press login, we are going to see a message next to the button which will show the text. In this case, login. Here, login button has been pressed. Login is concatenated with this message here, button has been pressed. And if I press register, it shows the window next to the button, and source.getText is register, so it concatenates register with button has been pressed. A small modification I made here in login view 1 is I'm not using JPanel, which I used before. In the last tutorial, I added a panel to the frame in the main method and passed the JPanel as a parameter to the method place components. What I do now is use directly the frame, not a panel. The panel is an intermediate container of components which wasn't really necessary. So to make it a bit more simple, I did not use it this time. Okay, this is all for this tutorial. See you in the next one. Bye.